Okay, hello and welcome to the Course Report Coding Bootcamp News Roundup. I'm Liz.
And I'm Jess, and we are from the Course Report team, so we spend our days helping students choose the best bootcamp for them. And each month we round up all the news published about coding bootcamps and digital skills bootcamps, everything we basically talked about in our virtual office, and we share it with you in one easily digestible episode.
Absolutely, and we have made it to the end of December, Jess. So that means it's time to look back at the end of this year. This is my favorite episode of the year. It means that we get to highlight all of the trends that we noticed in our industry over this last 365 days, and we get to make our predictions for 2025 about where we think coding bootcamps are headed.
Yeah, so Liz, let's remind everyone of our predictions that we made last year for 2024, back when we were in December 2023. So let's do that look back and see if any of those came true.
Of course. Okay. Wish we could do like a rewind. All right. Okay. So I think one of these were spot on. The other three, maybe not so much. I will remind us all of what Jess and I thought were going to happen in 2024. So first, we thought continued investment in AI upskilling and integration. I think couldn't have been more right about this one. I'm even proud of the nuance that we brought to that prediction. We kind of thought that, AI was very much an umbrella term at the time. So AI courses, AI boot camps, still incredibly broad, predicted that the market would become more fleshed out and that students would realize that you really can't just take this quick 5-minute, 1-week Coursera course about how to use ChatGPT if you want a truly impactful career in AI. And I think this was true throughout 2024 and will continue to be true going forward. Lifelong learning is here to stay. I think everyone needs to get used to learning new tools and new skills. So this one definitely came true. There was tremendous investment in upskilling our workforce for AI, and that will continue. And then prediction number 2, we said we would see more competitive lending for students. But in 2024, I think lending rates stayed pretty high. There were a couple of cool 0% loans from the boot camps themselves. General Assembly had one, for example, but affordability is one aspect of a boot camp that students are always pointing to as a main barrier. But we are going to get into 2 ways that is likely to be improved in 2025 very soon. Excited about those 2 things. And then the third prediction was that getting hired by the big tech companies would get easier and more predictable.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think compared to 2023, right? Like 2023 was a tough year in terms of tech layoffs. And compared to that, 2024, like layoffs did slow down, but we didn't see that full 180 recovery in the last year. But we are seeing, I think, other industries like finance and healthcare hire more tech workers and much more aggressively. So we'll talk about that as well. And then finally, this last prediction was the decoupling of universities and boot camps. And on the regulatory side, we predicted that if the Department of Education released new guidance around third-party service providers, then we would see this decoupling of universities and boot camps. In fact, we actually saw the exact opposite in a way. So the Department of Ed rescinded its regulation recently, kind of took OPMs off of life support, and I think that's pointing to more university boot camps in 2025. So some surprises this last year for sure, and we will get into all of those.
Definitely. Before we look back at the news of this year, 2024, what actually happened at Course Report this year? Let's take a look there.
Sure. Well, first of all, Course Report started the year with some major news, some huge news for us, which was that we were acquired by Career.io. We're just about to hit our 1-year milestone as part of the Career.io family. And Career.io and Course Report both serve career changers, but at different points in their career change. Career.io is a comprehensive career companion, helping folks get jobs, get promotions. I love that we can now think about how to support the Course Report community after their boot camp in landing that first job. So stay tuned for more about that in the upcoming year. But that was definitely a crazy way to kick off 2024.
Yeah, a major change for us. And then on top of that news, the Course Report team, we added 85 new schools to the Course Report directory, 6 of those alone in December. And in the same year, some schools closed doors. Sadly, that included Code Fellows, Launch Academy, Rhythm Academy, and edX. They all announced that they would close their boot camps. So you're going to see that those boot camps are marked as closed on Course Report if you look for them in the directory.
And then you, our readers, applied for over $200,000 this year in exclusive scholarships on Course Report. And we matched over 30,000 of you with coding boot camps in our matching tool.
So awesome.
Yeah.
We published around 90 new articles this year on the Course Report blog, 9 new podcast episodes, including this one, and a bunch of YouTube videos. Definitely go to our YouTube to check it out. And we even hosted 3 live webinars where you joined and asked questions live of our panelists.
Those were so much fun. Cannot wait to do more of those in the new year. And speaking of alumni, over 10,000 of you came back to Course Report to leave a review of your bootcamp experience. So thanks to all of the alumni who shared their reviews with future bootcampers. Could not do it without you. Jess, do you want to know what is the most reviewed bootcamp on Course Report?
Yeah, definitely. What is it?
What do you think?
Brain Station?
They're close, but that would be Le Wagon with 3,534 reviews.
Amazing.
As of December 27th, 2024. It makes sense. They've got a lot of campuses across Europe, and also they've been around for a long time, almost 10 years, and they've been on Course Report for almost 10 years. So lots of alumni there. And just a note about reviews on Course Report, we think reviews are one of the most important services that we offer our readers. So we took a minute this year to clarify some of our policies about reviews. Schools cannot pay to alter or remove their reviews and never have been able to. Course Report never suppresses negative reviews, and so we clarified that on the Course Report site. And while we don't prohibit schools from asking students or alumni to leave a review, the FTC released guidance about reviews this year that schools should definitely adhere to. For example, you shouldn't ask for only positive reviews. And then, of course, as we state in our review guidelines, schools are prohibited from leaving a review on behalf of or impersonating a student or alum in a review. So just to clarify, and we added some of those clarifications on the site this year.
Yeah, I love those changes.
Yeah. All right, Jess. Well, let's hop back in time to January 2024. Yeah. What popped out in the news about boot camps that month?
Okay, so if you'll remember, Liz, the New York Times debuted the term new collar workers. And Laura Kelly of the New York Times defined it as skilled workers without degrees. Honestly, January was the first and last time that I personally saw that term new collar worker in the news, but skills-based hiring continued to gain steam throughout 2024. So that is our first trend alert. of 2024, the increase in skills-based hiring. You'll notice throughout 2024, federal and state governments announced that they would be lifting degree requirements. Legislation was introduced to support skills-based hiring, and companies double down on meritocracy-based hiring in the press. But in 2025, we'll see if it's actually reflected in the numbers. Regardless, this is really good news, certainly good news for bootcamp students who took an alternative path into tech.
Absolutely. And then AI literacy and education was top of mind in January. Congress introduced a new bill, the AI Literacy Act, with the aim of providing AI training for children and adults. This would have amended the Digital Equity Act of 2021, but as of December, it has not yet passed.
Yeah.
And Simply Learn, which acquired Full Stack Academy in 2022, reported 50% year-over-year revenue growth in 2023. Upgrad was also in talks to acquire Udacity for $100 million in January, but that deal fell through. And then Udacity was instead acquired by Accenture this year for a rumored $80 million. In February, a study from Indeed showed that employees with generative AI skills saw a 50% salary increase. So integrating AI into the workplace began to catch fire at the top of the year. Throughout the year, we saw coding bootcamps react to those market demands, adding AI training to their curriculum. Most notably, we saw that in bootcamps like Codesmith, Hack Reactor, General Assembly, Lighthouse Labs, and Springboard. They all did a great job of that. We also saw a rise in AI short courses for tech beginners who just needed like a basic intro. And then also some of those short courses for advanced technologists who needed to like upskill with some fresh skills, but already had those fundamentals. So I think, Jess, this has to be our second trend alert of 2024. I know it's coming in hot in February, but the world going all in on AI machine learning skills. It's got to be our second trend alert. What's funny, I think, is that for boot camps, this wasn't really new, right? Like most of these schools had been teaching the foundations of machine learning and AI, data engineering and data analytics for many years now. And of course, boot camps are very much designed to be flexible and react to employer needs. So they were really some of the first to add Copilot, even ChatGPT and AI models to their curricula.
The largest coding bootcamp fundraise that we saw in February was Zipline's Education. It's an OPM, which raised $6.4 million in a Series A funding round. And the Tech Academy, which is based in the Pacific Northwest, but it also offers online bootcamps, celebrated its 10th anniversary this February, which is so cool.
And then we also hosted our first live Q&A of 2024. And this webinar focused on creative ways to pay for a boot camp. We had admissions reps from Tech Elevator, Springboard, General Assembly, and Flatiron School all join us to talk about all the ways that students can make tuition affordable for them. That included financing, scholarships, deferred tuition, all types of mechanisms there. I think there are still a lot of really relevant tips in that webinar, so check it out if you are thinking about enrolling in a boot camp in 2025. All right, fantastic. Okay, so this March began with an executive order that was prioritizing apprenticeships and federal hiring from the Biden administration. The goal of that order was to promote registered apprenticeships as a way to encourage skills-based hiring.
Fast Company highlighted how the nonprofit Code Path was helping students from underrepresented groups land well-paying tech roles. To provide technical training, mentorship, and career development for its students, Code Path partners with over 100 universities and 70 tech employers, including Amazon, Google, Meta, and JP Morgan Chase.
Really cool. And then Indeed's Hiring Lab released an interesting jobs report in March. That study found that 52% of U.S. job postings on Indeed did not include any educational requirements as of January 2024.
Wow.
Crazy.
It had already shifted that much by then. And then in addition to that Accenture / Udacity acquisition that we spoke about, Skillshare acquired the startup SuperPeer for an undisclosed amount.
All right. Well, April was a big month for Coding Bootcamp fundraisers. We had Hyperion Dev, which secured about $5 million. Data skills training platform Modal announced a $25 million Series A. And then AI edtech startup Pete raised $2 million in seed funding. And then upskilling startup Nextwork also raised $2.3 million to build out programming for workers displaced by AI.
In April, we were sad to see the closing of the Bootcamp Momentum. And then also the very influential group Women Who Code shuttered, citing a lack of funding sources. I believe there are some smaller groups that are a bit more localized that are trying to do sort of a Women Who Code thing, and maybe that will grow more in 2025, we hope.
Fill the gap a bit. Absolutely. And then the government took more steps in April to expand skills-based training. The House passed a bill called the Stronger Workforce for America Act, which aims to update the federal workforce system. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the WIOA. That bill would require states to spend a greater share of their WIOA funds on training for workers and wants states to focus more on real-time labor market data and skills-based hiring. This bill is still waiting to pass the Senate. And then the U.S. Office of Personnel Management expanded the Pathways program to include more internships and skills-based hiring at the federal level. And then finally, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee made moves to include federal contractors in its overall shift to a skills-based hiring model. So if you didn't believe us that skills-based hiring would be making an appearance throughout the year, here's evidence. All right, Jess, well, the big theme in May was nonprofit grant money. We saw a lot of grants going towards bootcamp programs. One example was Merit America, which received a $15.6 million grant through the Crankstart Foundation. And then Resilient Coders, which received a $2.5 million donation from Mackenzie Scott.
Very cool. We also saw mentions of a large workforce development initiative in Canada. Upskill Canada funded the full tuition for many students in 2024 who enrolled at boot camps like Brain Station, Lighthouse Labs, Palette Skills, and Jelly Academy. This was such a big opportunity for Canadians looking to make a successful career change into tech careers like software engineering, cybersecurity, and digital marketing.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And then over the past few years, we've seen a few coding bootcamps work with universities to offer students college credit. It's not super common, but we love when we see it. This May, Level Effect, which is a cybersecurity bootcamp, announced that graduates of their cyber defense analyst program could be eligible for 59 credits towards a Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity degree at Purdue University Global. Very cool offering, and wondering if we will see more cybersecurity bootcamps extend that college credit in 2025.
Yeah. And before we move on to the news of June, I also want to mention that talent management company Power to Fly acquired the online coding bootcamp Skill Crush in May.
Right, well, let's start with some of the major funding updates from June, which both had to do with fundraising for tech skills training. So Code Crew received a $1 million grant from the state of Tennessee to enhance its digital skills training program. And then later in the month, Pluralsight announced $2 million in cash grants to nonprofits like CodePath, LaunchCode, NPower, and Year Up, all dedicated to tech skills training for underrepresented communities.
In partnership news, Flatiron School announced that it had teamed up with Bletchley Institute to offer its students and graduates more opportunities for networking, mentorship, and skill development. App Academy began a new partnership with HTD Talent to recruit App Academy candidates to HTD's very intensive training and deployment program.
So cool. We love partnerships, especially with employers. And then there were also some great scholarships announced in June. We'll give a shout out to those through this nonprofit called Tech Impact. Tech Elevator was able to offer full tuition scholarships for eligible students in Delaware. And then Nashville Software School announced that these new access scholarships providing $2,000 off tuition for students who were enrolling in their upcoming summer and fall cohorts. And finally, Claim Academy partnered with Missouri Job Centers to offer free tech training through a grant program for Missouri residents.
This year, Chegg Skills, which was formerly known as Thinkful, went through a few changes. And in May, Chegg named Nathan Schultz as its new CEO. And then in June, it announced that it was restructuring to focus on enterprise training, which meant that it was sunsetting its online boot camps for individual career changers. So definitely Chegg/Thinkful has gone through a lot of change this year.
Well, the Biden administration did a lot for federal skills-based hiring and apprenticeships this year. In July, the White House announced $244 million to modernize and expand the registered apprenticeship system, aiming to create more pathways into tech careers.
We also saw the Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration award $19.5 million to the South Florida Climate Ready Tech Hub. This investment is really to support climate tech research, startups, and jobs with training led by Miami Tech Works, and that includes boot camps like IronHack, BrainStation, and 4Geeks Academy.
So cool. And probably the biggest news of July was that edX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy with a voluntary prepackaged deal. At the time of the bankruptcy filing, Paul Leahy was still the CEO of edX and gave assurance that nothing would be happening with university boot camps. Of course, that had changed by the end of the year. But yes, this was definitely the news in July.
Yeah, and we were definitely sad to see 2 veteran coding boot camps close in July, as we mentioned, Code Fellows and Rhythm School. And then 1150 Academy rebranded to Blazing Academy, shifting its focus from coding boot camps to just AI corporate training. So, are coding bootcamps worth it is a question we often hear, and one we actually ask all of the bootcamp alumni that we interview for the Course Report blog. The answer is always yes, with the acknowledgement that a student's mindset and drive also determines how successful that bootcamp experience is.
Yes, and in August, Technically's Holly Quinn explored the relevance of coding bootcamps in 2024 and highlighted the success of smaller nonprofit coding programs like Zip Code Wilmington. Holly Quinn recognized that the bootcamp industry is continuing to grow, with bootcamp graduates continuing to land jobs that boost their salaries, and even says that it may be more likely that bootcamps will become more necessary with how quickly tech is evolving in the 2020s. Another Technically article from this summer reminded readers that upskilling, including in AI technology, could be necessary for businesses to keep up.
The efforts to bridge the tech gap were also making headlines in August. Resilient Coders was bolstered by a grant from Mackenzie Scott, making it the second coding bootcamp this year to receive funding from Mackenzie Scott's Yield Giving. The Hetchinger report highlighted the positive impact of nonprofit tuition-free tech training programs like Marcy Lab School, which is based in New York City, and then Hack the Hood, which is based in Oakland.
And let's take a quick look at the most significant fundraising updates from this August. UpLimit, which is an upskilling platform, closed an $11 million Series A round to enhance their AI-powered enterprise training. The OPM Upright Education received an undisclosed investment from Rebalance Capital. And Wake Tech announced plans to launch a 30-week cybersecurity bootcamp funded by an $882,000 cooperative agreement from the National Science Foundation. Well, it's September, and cybersecurity cannot find enough professionals to fill all of the open roles. The White House announced in September an initiative to fill 500,000 U.S. cybersecurity jobs, focusing on removing college degree requirements for certain roles and expanding work-based learning through registered apprenticeships. So this is our third trend alert of 2024. Which is the demand for cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah, and we've spoken with so many cybersecurity bootcamp graduates from Springboard, Full Stack Academy, Flatiron School, 4Geeks Academy, and Lighthouse Labs for the course report blog just in this year alone. And I think the biggest takeaway I have from those interviews is that while cybersecurity certifications aren't essential to land your first IT or cybersecurity or networking job, they really do boost your hireability and earning potential. Liz and I are hoping to host a panel of cybersecurity bootcamp graduates for a live Q&A session in 2025 to answer all of your questions. Keep following us to just get news on when we will be hosting that event.
And over in edX news, a federal bankruptcy judge approved 2U edX's Chapter 11 bankruptcy in September. This meant that edX received approval of its restructuring plan and shed about $500 million in debt.
The 2024 election definitely began heating up in September. We heard that skills-based hiring and encouraging alternative pathways into the workforce was a prime concern for both candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
And this September, we hosted a really awesome live Q&A on navigating the tech job search with career experts from General Assembly, Tech Elevator, Springboard, and Flatiron School. I think this was a extremely competitive tech job market this year, and it was great to get some really useful insights from leaders in the field, very actionable tips, great takeaways. You can still rewatch that video. Well, the big news in October was focused on the online program management sector, which we call OPMs. And the U.S. Department of Education rescinded its February 2023 guidance that classified OPMs as third-party service providers, which really altered the regulatory landscape for OPMs like edX. Phil on EdTech, who we love, following, totally respect, noted that OPMs are no longer on life support. Market demand started increasing in 2024 compared to 2023. This was definitely a surprise in terms of where we expected that regulatory action to go.
Yeah, and then this October, 2U CEO Paul Leahy stepped down, and former Chief Financial Officer Matthew Norden was appointed as the interim CEO. And then in funding news, Eruditus, the parent company of Emeritus, secured a $150 million funding round, elevating its valuation to between $3 and $3.5 billion.
And Guild Education acquired Nomadic Learning to establish Guild Academy, which is essentially enterprise training. And Simply Learn, the parent company of Full Stack Academy, announced the relocation of its headquarters from San Francisco to Plano, Texas. Well, the biggest news from November was that the House has passed the Dole Act, which includes provisions for the Veteran Employment Through Technology Education Courses program, which can be shortened to VET Tech. It's been about 1 full year since veterans were able to use VET Tech funding to cover their coding bootcamp tuition. And we were hopeful in November that they would be able to do so again. Obviously in November, we were still waiting for the Senate to pass this. And coding bootcampers from previous years who had had access to VET Tech funding had told us time and time again they really appreciated it. It didn't cut into GI Bill benefits. It gave them a living and housing stipend. They had some really interesting safeguards in place around funding the program and approving boot camps based on outcomes. So we were so happy to see this getting some new life. And maybe we'll have an interesting update in a second about that one.
Yeah. In November, the most significant acquisition was Quick Start acquiring Promeneo Tech for an undisclosed sum. And the U.S. Department of Labor awarded the New York City Tech Training Program Pursuit a $2 million grant through the Building Pathways to Infrastructure Jobs Grant Program. This grant will support a new cybersecurity program designed to assist over 200 low-income and underemployed New Yorkers.
And then President-elect Donald Trump nominated Linda McMahon as the new education secretary. This would spell pretty good news for Pell Grants for short-term programs, which is something that has been in the course report news roundups for, I want to say, probably the last 5 years. She's also interested in increasing support for workforce development, apprenticeships, and short-term certifications.
All right, so that brings us to December. The biggest news from December is that edX, one of the largest OPMs, shuttered its university boot camps in order to shift focus to its micro-credential courses. As we said earlier, a new interim CEO came on board this fall, and initially it sounded like edX would continue going, business as usual. But if you'll remember, edX had already closed their UK university boot camps in May.
Yeah, and with 2U and edX bowing out from the university boot camp space, there are still many OPMs out there that could fill that gap. In Paul Fain's most recent newsletter, he mentioned Ziplines rising up. There's also Promeneo Tech, which was just bought by Quick Start, as just mentioned. Upright Education, Full Stack Academy, which is owned by Simply Learn. Springboard runs university boot camps. Institute of Data, Stackrod Education, Thrive DX. Certainly do not think that OPMs and university boot camps will be going away in 2025. I think we will have to see what the next generation of these partnerships really look like post edX. And some amazing news to close out the year. The Senate passed the Dole Act, which we're so excited about, right around Christmas Eve, which means that Vet Tech will most likely be revived next year. Great news for veterans, and honestly, great news for boot camps. I think if you were a boot camp that was approved or a preferred partner through Vet Tech, you'll still need to get reapproved. It'll still be a process, but we're going to have Alicia Body join us for an emergency podcast episode to talk about some of the details here soon, and really excited to have her expertise and thinking about what is next for Vet Tech in boot camps in 2025. So stay tuned for that.
This month, the U.S. Department of Labor withdrew its proposal to update the registered apprenticeship system. It's unclear if or when the updates to the system would or could happen, but Republicans have been open to expanding apprenticeships in the past, so it might be something that comes up again, maybe Q1, Q2 of 2025.
Interesting. And in the Observer, Aaron Mock also spoke with Amazon Web Services' Jenny Troutman about the free AWS training that is going to be training over 2 million people with AI skills by 2025. Jenny answered a few questions about starting a tech career now, and she had a few great insights we wanted to share. So Jenny first pointed out that there's a strong demand for cloud professionals and AI adjacent roles like data scientists, machine learning engineers, and data engineers. And as to concerns of AI replacing workers, Jenny points out what she's often heard this year, which is that creativity and innovation are irreplaceable. AI is a tool, she says, but humans must define the application, solve problems, and generate ideas. Additionally, effectively using AI tools requires foundational skills, end quote. And I think that is the perfect quote to take into 2025 as we think about how to be relevant and stay irreplaceable in 2025.
And this December, we also held our last live Q&A of 2024. This live Q&A focused on part-time boot camps. Our 4 panelists all made a career change into tech by recently enrolling in a part-time boot camp. Our panelists attended the boot camp Springboard, General Assembly, Tech Elevator, and Careerist. And they shared so many awesome insights into what it really takes to start a brand new tech career in software engineering, cybersecurity, and QA testing. So definitely check out the video or the blog post recap for some of those insights. It'll be really good if you're considering kicking off your career change in early 2025, so you can kind of know what to expect and really how to optimize your tech job search.
Absolutely. And Jess, which new schools did we see mentioned and add to the directory on Course Report?
Yeah, so Interview Kickstart, which has primarily been a technical interview preparation program, it's now offering a machine learning course. Quick Start has partnered with Santa Monica College to offer a new cybersecurity bootcamp. And over in the UK, the University of Wolverhampton is opening its own coding and AI bootcamp in early 2025 to help locals upskill into tech careers. And then we added 6 new bootcamps to the Course Report school listings over this past month. And those bootcamps are K2 College, Zero to Mastery, Dobage Learnings, Harness Projects, HubLedge, and Codemify.
Amazing. Well, welcome to those 6 new schools. And if you attended any of those schools, please visit Course Report and leave a review. It can help a future boot camper make a decision about the best school for them.
All right, Liz, there was really so much going on in 2024. So what are you thinking for trends in 2025 right now?
Oh, it is hard to say, but if you're asking, I'll share my predictions. Okay, here they are. So first prediction. I think that, we heard the term skills-based hiring a million times this last year, but it was really all in legislation and in the press. So I think that all of that groundwork that we laid around skills-based hiring should start to make an impact in the actual hiring rates in 2025. So, gotta kind of start putting our money where our mouth is. Love all the talk around meritocracy, especially coming from some of these huge technology companies. But we really specifically want to see that folks without that classic computer science degree are getting hired for the technical roles that they are trained and qualified to do. That is my first prediction, is that we will actually start to see that play out in the numbers. Prediction number 2, I think we've seen a huge rise in the need for cybersecurity. I do not think that is going to slow down. I think the demand for cybersecurity professionals will only rise in 2025, and boot camps will rise to the occasion to help meet that need, especially in a world where AI generated code is more prevalent, where folks may be less connected or more detached from the code that they are deploying. Cybersecurity risks will grow alongside that, and some of those apprenticeship programs and partnerships with actual companies and industry are really needed to grow alongside that demand as well. So definitely demand for cybersecurity and the boot camps and short-term programs that support those. And then finally, I think that private loans will no longer be the number one way to pay for a boot camp. By all counts, vet tech is back. I think, Pell Grants for short-term programs might, probably will actually really happen in 2025. Linda McMahon will likely lead the education department. You can read her her op-ed about short-term programs. She believes in Pell for short-term education. She's bullish on it. So I think that 2025 is likely the year that students are able to once again pay for a boot camp with some mechanism other than a private loan. And I think those are our predictions. Jess, we were talking earlier about maybe universities or university boot camps offering college credit. And I feel like that was a trend a few years ago and kind of faded away, but now we're seeing that a bit more. You mentioned like Level Effect, and I was just talking to another school, also cybersecurity, that's able to offer college credit for their cybersecurity boot camps. So I think we'll see a little rise there, but some really interesting things will be happening with micro-credentials.
Yes, the micro-credential
programs and boot camps in 2025.
Yeah, I love those predictions. And if any of our predictions come true, you're definitely going to hear about them next December when we're going to be wrapping up 2025.
Of course, we'll be talking your ear off about it. So thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you listening all year. Jess, I appreciate you wrapping up the news with me every month, and cannot wait to see you in 2025. And as always, we love your feedback. So email us at hello@coursereport.com. Let us know what you'd like to hear about on the next Course Report podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, please help other future boot campers find it by going to iTunes, subscribing to the Course Report podcast, and leaving us a review. We will see you next year.
We'll see you next year.